It was late on a cold March night in northern Vermont. Inside a quiet roadside restaurant, the final customers had already left. The dining room lights were dim. Chairs were stacked on tables. In the kitchen, the sound of running water echoed as dishes were washed and dried. 17-year-old Brianna Maitland finished her shift and stepped outside into the dark. She climbed into her car, started the engine, and pulled onto the empty road. Her drive home should have taken less than 15 minutes, but Brianna never arrived. Hours later, police discovered her car at the edge of a quiet road outside the small town of Montgomery. It had crashed into the side of an abandoned farmhouse. The headlights were still shining into the darkness. One of the doors was open, but the driver was gone. And as investigators began piecing together Brianna's final hours, the mystery surrounding that night only grew deeper. Before the strange discovery on that rural Vermont road, Brianna Maitland was simply a young woman beginning her adult life. Brianna was born in 1986 and raised in the rural communities of northern Vermont. Friends and family described her as independent and determined. She enjoyed spending time outdoors and had a creative personality that made her stand out among her peers. Like many teenagers approaching adulthood, Brianna wanted to establish her own independence. By early 2004, she had already taken steps in that direction. Instead of living full-time at home with her parents, Bruce and Kelly Maitland, Brianna had been staying with friends in nearby towns while working multiple jobs. She had earned her GED and was trying to build a routine for herself. Her schedule was busy. She worked at the Black Lantern Inn, a small restaurant in Montgomery, where she washed dishes during evening shifts. She also worked occasional hours at another restaurant nearby. To people around her, Brianna seemed motivated. She had responsibilities, co-workers, and plans for the future. Nothing about her daily life suggested that she was about to become the focus of one of Vermont's most enduring mysteries. Her parents believed she was simply navigating the early stages of adulthood, working late shifts, balancing responsibilities, trying to find her path. And on the evening of March 19th, 2004, Brianna was doing exactly what she had done many nights before: going to work, finishing her shift, and driving home. But that night, something happened along the way. March 19th began as an ordinary day. Earlier that afternoon, Brianna spent time with her mother running errands. The two talked about everyday things, plans, responsibilities, and the busy weekend ahead. Later that evening, Brianna prepared for work. She had a shift scheduled at the Black Lantern Inn. Before leaving, she wrote a short note to the friend she was staying with, saying she would return later that night. Nothing about her plans suggested she intended to disappear. When Brianna arrived at the Black Lantern Inn, the restaurant was operating as usual. Customers came and went. Staff members worked through the dinner rush. Brianna spent the evening behind the kitchen line, washing dishes and clearing plates. Co-workers later told investigators that she seemed normal that night. She wasn't upset. She wasn't distracted. She appeared exactly as she always did during her shifts. The night continued without incident. As closing time approached, the restaurant grew quiet. Around 11:20 p.m., Brianna finished her duties. She clocked out and prepared to leave. Some co-workers suggested she stay for a little while longer to relax after the shift. But Brianna declined. She had another job scheduled the following morning and wanted to get home. She said goodbye, walked out into the cool Vermont night, and climbed into her car. The vehicle she drove that evening was a pale green 1985 Oldsmobile sedan. When the engine started, The headlights cut through the darkness of the rural road. Brianna pulled out of the parking lot and began the short drive away from the restaurant. That moment, her car disappearing down the quiet road, would become the last confirmed sighting of Brianna Maitland. In the early hours of March 20th, something unusual caught the attention of drivers traveling along Route 118 near Montgomery. A car sat at the edge of the road beside an abandoned farmhouse. At first glance, it looked like a crash. But the closer people looked, the stranger the scene appeared. The vehicle had been backed directly into the side of the old building. The rear of the car had punched through the wooden wall. Boards and debris were scattered around the impact point. Yet the damage to the vehicle itself appeared relatively minor. The headlights were still on. The driver's side door was open, and there was no one in the car. The building itself had long been abandoned. Local residents sometimes referred to it as the Dutchburn farmhouse. It stood alone along the roadside, dark and empty. When police later examined the vehicle, they confirmed it belonged to Brianna Maitland. Inside the car were several of her belongings. 2 uncashed paychecks from the Black Lantern Inn were still there. Other personal items remained inside the vehicle. Nothing suggested Brianna had packed belongings or left intentionally. The location of the car raised immediate questions. The farmhouse was less than a mile from the restaurant where Brianna had just finished work. If she had driven directly home, she would have passed through that area within minutes. But why was the car backed into the building? Why was the door open? And where was Brianna? Those questions would mark the beginning of an investigation that would continue for decades. When officers from the Vermont State Police arrived at the scene, they began documenting everything they could observe. The positioning of the car immediately drew attention. Instead of crashing into the building head-on, the vehicle had been reversed into the structure. Investigators considered several possibilities. One theory was that Brianna may have lost control of the vehicle while attempting to turn around. Another possibility was that the crash had occurred during some kind of struggle. Police carefully searched the surrounding area. They examined the roadside. They checked nearby fields and wooded areas. They looked for footprints or signs that someone had walked away from the vehicle. But the search revealed very little. There were no obvious tracks leading away from the scene. No clear evidence showing where Brianna might have gone. Inside the car, investigators found scattered items. Loose change was visible. Other belongings appeared disturbed. But nothing provided a clear explanation for what had happened. The lack of evidence created a difficult starting point for investigators. Without witnesses or physical clues, reconstructing Brianna's final movements became extremely challenging. Authorities began speaking with people who had seen the car earlier that night. Several drivers reported noticing the vehicle near the farmhouse shortly after midnight. Some said the headlights were on. Others believed the car doors were open. But none of those witnesses reported seeing Brianna, and none reported seeing anyone else near the vehicle. The timeline grew increasingly puzzling. Brianna left work around 11:20 p.m. The car was first noticed less than an hour later. Somewhere within that short period of time, Brianna had disappeared. For several days, Brianna's absence was not immediately recognized as a disappearance. Friends believed she might be staying with family. Family members believed she might be staying with friends. It was not until March 23rd that Brianna's parents realized something was seriously wrong. They contacted authorities to report her missing. When investigators connected the missing person report with the abandoned car found days earlier, the situation changed immediately. The case was no longer simply a strange crash scene. It was now a missing person investigation. Search teams began combing the surrounding countryside. Volunteers joined law enforcement in searching wooded areas, fields, and roadside ditches. Helicopters and tracking dogs were used during some of the search efforts. But despite extensive searches, there was no sign of Brianna. No clothing, no personal belongings, no indication that she had traveled far from the scene. Investigators began considering the possibility that Brianna had encountered someone on the road that night, someone she may have known, or someone she may have met unexpectedly. Authorities interviewed co-workers from the Black Lantern Inn. They spoke with friends and acquaintances. They examined Brianna's recent activities. Several individuals were considered persons of interest during the early stages of the investigation, but none were charged with a crime, and the mystery surrounding Brianna's disappearance continued to deepen. Over the following years, the case remained open. Investigators continued reviewing evidence and pursuing tips from the public. In later developments, forensic evidence recovered near Brianna's vehicle was re-examined using updated DNA testing techniques. According to reports from Vermont State Police and coverage from CBS News, the DNA was entered into national databases maintained by the FBI. Those tests were intended to identify possible individuals connected to the scene. Despite those efforts, the results did not identify a suspect. Authorities also revisited earlier interviews and re-examined potential connections between Brianna and individuals in the area. Rumors circulated in the community about possible conflicts and illegal activities that may have intersected with Brianna's life. But investigators have never publicly confirmed a clear motive or suspect. More than 2 decades have passed since Brianna Maitland drove away from work that night, yet the case remains unsolved. Today, Brianna Maitland's disappearance is still listed as an active case by the FBI and Vermont State Police. Her family continues to search for answers. The abandoned farmhouse where her car was discovered has long since been demolished, but the questions connected to that location remain. What happened during the short drive between the restaurant and that quiet roadside building? Why was her car backed into the wall? Did Brianna encounter someone on that road? Or was someone already waiting there? More than 20 years later, investigators are still searching for the truth. And the mystery of what happened after Brianna Maitland left work that night remains unsolved.